Good evening. This is David Unsworth, host of the PanAm Post English podcast. On Thursday, January 4th, Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced an end to an Obama administration policy known as the Cole Memo, which directed the Justice Department not to prosecute marijuana cases in states that have legalized recreational or medicinal marijuana. The policy understandably outraged the marijuana industry and prompted a fierce blowback from politicians on both sides of the aisle, including Colorado Senator Cory Gardner, who claimed Trump went back on his word by allowing Sessions to change the policy. Will the backlash ultimately prompt the Justice Department to reconsider the policy change? Will Congress now consider something that would have been unthinkable a generation ago, legalizing marijuana on a federal level? And what are the economic implications of repealing the Cole Memo? What is rather disappointing here to libertarians is that this does indeed appear to be a reversal of a campaign promise that Trump made. This has been pointed out by California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. He's running for governor in November of this year. And Trump has a long history on the campaign trail of advocating for a states' rights policy on this issue. And even if you go back further in his career, when he wasn't even a politician, in 1990, he said in an interview with the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, "We're losing badly the war on drugs. You have to legalize drugs to win that war. You have to take the profit away from these drug czars." Fair enough, and polls have shown that this is not a popular issue. What Trump's Attorney General Jeff Sessions is doing here. A recent Quinnipiac poll shows that 71% of U.S. voters do not believe the federal government should target states that have legalized marijuana. So Colorado Senator Cory Gardner has really become the point person here on criticizing this policy change. And he's a Republican, obviously. He's a pretty influential Republican. He's the chair of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. It's interesting to note that on January 1st of this year, just a week ago, California's recreational marijuana law had taken effect. So this is just another battle in the showdown between Trump and Blue America. Washington Governor Jay Inslee said, "We will use every single power at our disposal to preserve and protect the mission statement Washington state voters gave us." And it's important to note, too, that there are real economic implications here. The marijuana industry in the United States in the last fiscal year was estimated at $7.9 billion. In the state of Washington, it accounted for $280 million in state tax revenue. And there aren't many people who advocate for frequent and habitual and sustained use of marijuana, maybe outside of medical context, but what I think is really outrageous, and a lot of people think so, not, even Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, whatever, marijuana is currently classified as a Schedule I drug. It's in the same medical category as heroin. So it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense here that something that is so dangerous and so deadly and so addictive as heroin would be classified in the same category with marijuana. And from a libertarian standpoint, we are always going to say people are responsible for their own lives and they're responsible for their own decisions. Now, a lot of people kind of on the conservative side of the aisle say, well, that's all well and good, but what happens when we're now expected to pay for everyone's health care? In the wake of the Bernie Sanders campaign, there's been a real push towards having a more European-style single or socialized medicine. And I think that's a very reasonable argument. I mean, in my ideal world, people should be free to use whatever drugs they want, but they should be responsible for their own health care. There's no way. It doesn't make much sense to say that we're going to legalize opiates and hard drugs and people can do whatever they want, but when you ruin your health, we're going to pay for your health care. It's going to be, It's going to be another entitlement program, and the United States taxpayers are going to subsidize your irresponsible and reckless behavior. Going back to the Gardner theme, Gardner made a very impassioned speech on the Senate floor, and he said that the retaliation that he's going to take is he's going to place a personal hold, which any U.S. Senator is allowed to do, on every Justice Department nominee until this matter gets looked into, until this matter gets addressed. And he noted as well that he opposed the Colorado measure that legalized recreational marijuana, but he believes that the federal government should respect the rights of the state of the Colorado on this matter. I mean, a lot of people harken back to the 10th Amendment, which says that anything not specifically delegated in the Constitution to the federal government is a matter for the states or for the people. This new directive, the repeal of the Cole Amendment, allows them to consider bringing cases against the marijuana industry. But it's important to note it does not order them to do so. So it is not as though Sessions and Trump are saying you are now required to target anyone possessing marijuana, consuming marijuana, and even more importantly, growing marijuana. Nonetheless, I mean, people have reason to be concerned. Ron Paul, in an interview on CNN, called for Jeff Sessions to be fired, which would be a move that would relieve many libertarians who see Jeff Sessions as one of the worst influences in Trump's cabinet. He was on CNN with conservative Michael Smerconic, and he shared his thoughts on the matter. He said, just because you legalize something doesn't mean everyone's going to do it. And then if you look at the consequences of the drug war, why don't the people just look and read and study Prohibition? It was a total failure, and the war on drugs is every bit as bad and worse. People should have the right or responsibility of dealing with what is dangerous. Once you get into this thing about government is going to protect us against ourselves, there's no protection of liberty. And he finally wrapped up his comments by making a very interesting point about the fiscal side of things. I predict that Sessions is not going to be victorious on this, and unfortunately, it's for reasons that I don't get excited about. It's because the states want to collect all of those taxes, so it becomes this tax issue. And this is absolutely correct. Obviously, states are always looking for additional sources of revenue, and marijuana has become, for example, in California, they're now estimating that the tax revenue is going to broach $1 billion or exceed $1 billion. That's a staggering amount of money. That's just a staggering amount of money. I mean, I don't have the facts in front of me, but I bet there are some states that don't even have a $1 billion budget. I mean, I don't know, I'd be interested to see what the state budget of a state like Wyoming or North Dakota is or something, but that is a huge amount. That is a huge amount of tax revenue. And there is an interesting point here that if you legalize it, you hurt the drug cartels and you help the state from a fiscal standpoint. You provide jobs in the marijuana industry, and it undercuts the black market. The price goes down. These are all good things from my mind. And a key question that I have here, and I don't have a conclusive answer to this. Has Trump said that he approves of this? Has Trump directed Sessions to do this? Is Sessions doing this of his own volition? Potentially, I mean, there have been some sparks flying between Trump and Sessions. They've had a little bit of a stormy relationship over their first year. And also, why would Sessions wait for an entire year to announce the change to the policy? I mean, the Trump administration took power January 20th. He's been Attorney General since then. He waited a year to do this. And I would like to know why. And I would like to know, Trump doesn't appear to have said anything about this recently, but he did say numerous times on the campaign trail, this is a states' rights issue, and under my administration, we're not going to go after people who are abiding by their state law. We're not going to use federal resources to target these people. So many states, actually a majority of states, currently have legal medicinal marijuana or cannabinoid oils. 8 states now have legalized marijuana for recreational use. So that's a big block of West Coast states: Colorado, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, California. It is Alaska, which, if I'm not mistaken, actually has had a legalized recreational marijuana law for the longest amount of time. Very libertarian streak out there. And here in the Northeast, it includes Maine and Massachusetts. But clearly, if you're reading the handwriting on the wall, clearly there is going to be a trend towards legalization in an increasing number of states, particularly in the West and the Northeast. Probably the Deep South and the Great Plains, that not anytime soon, but the trend is heading that way, and it's not just in the Democratic Party, it's in the Republican Party too. On this issue, I think for the better, Americans are starting to have a more libertarian perspective on the issue. And again, this isn't a few hippies in a basement with some grow lights and fertilizer growing a couple plants now. This is a $8 billion industry. This is a major industry with companies traded on stock exchanges to boot. And back to the Cory Gardner angle. What Gardner said is, "I will be putting a hold on every single nomination from the Department of Justice until Attorney General Jeff Sessions lives up to the commitment he made to me in my pre-confirmation meeting with him. The conversation we had that was specifically about this issue of states' rights in Colorado. Until he lives up to that commitment, I'll be holding up all of his nominations for the Department of Justice. The people of Colorado deserve answers." And I say cheers to Cory Gardner. I've liked this guy. He got elected, I think, 2 or 3 cycles ago. I think he's still in his first term, if I'm not mistaken. But he has always struck me as someone who is going places, well-spoken, good knowledge of public policy, affable, he comes across well on TV. I think he is someone with a real future, and even though he didn't originally support this piece of legislation in Colorado that legalized recreational marijuana, he understands federalism, states' rights, and he wants the will of the people of Colorado respected. And that's very understandable. Hopefully this is a sign that there is a growing libertarian wing in the Republican Party. They hopefully see that marijuana prohibition is not a winning issue at the ballot box. And what is very interesting as well is, as of yet, not a single member of Congress has come out supporting this decision. No one has issued a statement supporting Sessions for what he did here. And wrapping things up here, there is hope on this matter, and it's called H.R. 1227, the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act, which has been sponsored by a Virginia Republican by the name of Thomas Garrett. It would remove marijuana from the Schedule I drug list, again, meaning that marijuana would not now be in the same category as extremely dangerous hardcore narcotics like heroin, and it would end federal criminal penalties for anyone who is involved in the use or production of marijuana under existing state laws. So it would, it basically would say that if you're in the state of Maine and you have a little bit of marijuana on you and you're arrested, that you are not in violation of a state law, but you are in violation of a federal law, that we will not use federal resources to target those people. Just the same way that we won't use federal resources to target a marijuana growing operation in Colorado or Oregon. Sounds like a good idea to me, and it sounds like a good topic for a future PanAm Post podcast. We will keep you updated on the on all the activities surrounding House Resolution 1227, sponsored by Thomas Garrett. This has been David Unsworth with the PanAm Post podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.